of a very fine collection, A Shape Produced by a Curve. This October book celebration to great weather for media brings together about a dozen people, 8 or 9 people from across the country who are contributors to the this anthology this go around. As you know, anybody who's received the collection, you know it as a really quite an impressive set of works, poetry and short fiction. 66 writers from across the United States and internationally. The anthology also contains a really very revealing interview with artist, writer, performer, and veteran of Andy Warhol's Silver Factory, Bibbe Hansen. It's one of a number of anthologies we've done over the years. Myself and co-editors here, I select David Lawton, Jane Ormerod, and the other editors who are not with us at the moment. We highly recommend that you purchase our products through our online bookshop.org store or through your favorite local bookstore. Of course, if you want to go corporate, you can choose some other options, including Amazon.com or Barnes & Noble. But in any case, we welcome you to this very exciting show. Today, you're going to hear from, as I say, 8 people alphabetically from the anthology, which came out a few months ago. And to kick us off with a reading from A Shape Produced by a Curve, I'd like to welcome Billy Cancel, just back from UK, his native UK, to New York. We call him the masked marvel of New York City. Here he is, Billy Cancel.
We are a post-punk unicorn tapestry upon the ragged edge of constant relaunch, sizzle, sozzle, unfolding backwards. You are invited not to come. There were problems at the core, so I stewed around that vault garden, and nowadays keep going like a windmill gone mad. Did we winter good? Well, were amongst the doctors, then back in limbo with a stomach full of bed strings waiting to break out in cash. You chant total peace upon a perfect earth. We sing atmospheric synth dirge, whose oat burner gets us fastest out of Shark City Sadland. Buzz Crusher, this is the other dance. Baptized in sweet tea, marinated in piss. Baptized in sweet tea, marinated in piss. Bad teeth, no reason to laugh less. A gap in the score for my specific waste. And though a candle consumes as much air as a man, ain't no average candle. Get bits of lemon for the progress I make, rather than biting man and horse alike. Mosquito hawk, all tangled up in the sickly stuff, fancies himself upon a rose-tinged cloud reeling through space. And though I'm liable to similar episodes, this disregard overture starts out with a scheme of progression, goes on to its logical end. The leech moves by affixing its rear sucker to a surface, stretching forward, affixing its front sucker, then dragging up its rear to begin the process again. Don't that knock ya? Filling myself all up on worm castles. Filling myself all up on worm castles, have learnt to cop it sweet and give out dirty orbs through attitude adjustment hour. Eat a serving of the great unknown. Get the green apple quick step. Call out. File the day under bonus damage. Screw up my face. Consume my features. So I screw up my mouth and my heart beats less, because in hot rain, hard town, I fried my beans frothnicating to the back of the room while scanner and ignition eluded me. So I let that poppy show run its course, then got him down close to syntax, gave way to speech, musical score, then noise. Alone in my high, dreary spot, above the searching mouths, my dial set to Where Did the Road Go radio, and what will I hear in the trivial songs of the Corn Bunting and Yellowhammer? We need a piss quiz from you. No commercials and a piss quiz. Bumper to bumper, screaming demons. Bumper to bumper, screaming demons much influenced my writing style around the time I quit the pop band White Horse, because getting our sad on in such bold, simple compositions was all gone, no dinner. An ode to cracks discovered upon a power station reactor in southwest England proved to only be the start. Initially, you were all wisteria, snagged by a wait-a-minute thorn bush in Bigfoot County. Bright red clusters, bare wintered branches, your distinctive signature, was on the road to Wanker's doom. Then got word of Fist City velvet fog, checked your nerves, and were all about that. Something germinating round the cackle factory bursts out in pixie lights, only to be terminated by distorted elements. That's what I'm aiming for. Signal failure at Gremlin Junction. Signal failure at Gremlin Junction, most common in the fogging months. Longest piss train passing slow, longest shit train stored. Don't dynamite in champagne weather, expect to get an encore. Structural antagonism courtesy of Great Mutton Fist. Too close to Carousel Arcade Entertainment Park to be scared of stupid, jarring, repetitive jingling sounds. We live in a checkered land of weird history and strangers. Amongst unidentified uniformed men. Amongst unidentified uniformed men upon a featureless outcrop weren't my scene, even though I was rarely more than half a hot dog from transcendental enlightenment or quitting totally. Unconvinced in a different way this eve, despite gold-plated background and marked improved hoax coke indifference. We'll be drinking hazy IPA at a vendor's table in Chelsea Market. Outside, fire rains down, fire rains down, fire rains down, bugs infest. Not the end of the world, though, just an apocalypse sampler, a terminus appetizer. Giant rhubarb is an acceptable risk. Giant rhubarb is an acceptable risk, and still there's a sequential logic to gorging intermittently upon late berries. If someone new comes into your life, beware any watertight gold brick spirit intrigue they might drag through our garden. GRISAAR. Giant rhubarb is still an acceptable risk. And indeed, there's a sequential logic to gorging intermittently upon late berries. If someone new comes into your life, beware any watertight gold brick spirit intrigue they might drag through our garden. then half a mile up the dirt track, shouting as they pass. Turn away from such guiding principles and all those mundanes grazing upon algae, all those mundane guiding principles. We are approaching peak strangeness. Peak strangeness now. This is 0 hour. This is 0 hour. Let's go, witch. Giant rhubarb remains an acceptable risk. Thank you, everyone.
Billy Cancel. There's always acceptable risks with Billy Cancel. Thank you very much. Our next reader, also from New York. I've had the pleasure of reading with him at the Greek Consulate in New York City. Bill Considine, a poet and a playwright, actually a very prolific playwright, including several verse plays that have been performed online or in person in the past couple of years. Most recent one just a month ago, Oedipus in Love, September 2023. Please welcome Bill Considine.
Unmuted and proceeding. Thank you. Thank you, George. Thank you, Great Weather for Media. I'll begin with my prose poem, Electro Epiphany. I'm proud Great Weather for Media has published it in A Shape Produced by a Curve. Electro Epiphany. The text must conclude with epiphany. The sky must be light recurring. Daybreak opens with birdsong. Hunger follows the hunters onto interstate highways. Broad structures pass as thoughts glimpse through forests. Skillets sizzle with heated fats. Until the debt is refinanced, payouts will be limited to what can be taken first. At the top of the market, gamblers rejoice too soon for you. For what is dreamed, the deed is the playoffs. Fumbles and turnovers will be key. This groping into nothing best approximates a search for a missing child the entire next day. This neighborhood was once a realtor's dream, a mayor's ribbon, a builder's day job. Choose a caravan or trade wind, the desert or tumultuous southern seas round the horns. Suppose that just once the whales still churn the oceans with many mighty tails. On the other hand, the other glove fits better. Your prescription for pharmaceutical opiates is ready for pickup. Bring photo ID. Dogs are sniffing urine and our groins again. Music in the hot coffee shops is all lyric love. Everyone's singing inside, in our innards. The snow encloses what follows as aphrodisiac. An empty milk carton can be washed out and included with glass and plastics for disposal, I hope. When I ruled on petty violations, I had to say over and over, you are not accused of a crime, sir. When much of this is underwater, will jellyfish feed here? Monsters are such idiots. Someone special lied 3 times in one tweet, but who cares? As the envelope opens, the letter writes itself in invisible ink. We just add lemon. What a send-off for the brave space cadets. Evergreens keep their cool, shed hard cones. This thirst for novelty tastes like drool, but what's new? Better to burn the toast than light the house on fire. Bitter the night. The stars sped right through the main sequence, got on with it. What I found on the floor were cracker crumbs and pine needles. The wind whispered promises, promises of more wind. What incessant boasting. Who thinks of ions and unattached electrons at a time like this? But their time is coming, always. Electromagnetic pulses can erase our connectivity. Mexico is bigger than Alaska, so throw out all those other maps. What is the past, if not nostalgia for our love? Data entry can be measured by keystroke counts or tasks completed, balanced with error rates and any other instance of gross failure to follow procedures. That feeling of healthy exertion was so pleasant and relaxing. I'll be reading now from my latest book, Continent of Fire, published by Kelsey Books in 2022. And I want to thank Great Weather and David Lawton for hosting a live reading where I first read from Continent of Fire. Gowanus. These blocks to the west, Gowanus, feel all at once familiar. Brick and cement sheds for industry and warehousing, 1 to 3 stories high. The grid of streets looks largely abandoned. From shoulder to shoulder, all is sky. I could muse in solitude here, as I lived for years, a few miles north, just north of the mouth of Newtown Creek, another waterway dredged from a stream. Years of bounty surround me again, pacing through mills by rivers to find work. Here, the canal is narrow and brackish, smelling of long, stagnant water over murk. We once rowed a canoe around a bend into the main channel, wide and high-walled, by vast machines, a crushing scale upon us. Suddenly too close to home, Gowanus. Painted yellow, a taxi fleet garage bustles by yellow cabs through 2 doors, the curb-lined interior deep with cabs. Nearby, the News Brooklyn garage is a faded expanse, 80,000 square feet will divide. Around the corner is an open door. Inside, people, active. Artists? A big, bright project consumes them. It's another funhouse, a rock climbing place with colorful cliffs. Dozens of fit young people scale the walls or cluster merrily below. More and more arrive behind me, flowing in as I recede. These streets are more than a ghosted work zone, a sight to mourn the truckers of yore and the nightly dispatch of dirty newsprint. The city awakes, still young and moving in. Up the block, people throng a new bar, where the back room has a stage, shows films of climbing mountains and enthusiasm. A stage, poets and dreamers alert. This close to home, fresh life is a flirt. Speaking of flirts, 1+1. Tango passion, ham bone hip. I vote for you. You peel me open to pour out fresh nutrients and sear them in a large oven-proof pan. You pour me into your pie of the day. Enjoy whatever you might find to like in me. Others have and have moved on. Their hunger lingers and burns through nights as I sweat. How pale I was as one of 2, and then 2 others. Now I come up with the sun in sober arrogance, all shining and smiling like a just world, with jokes and joys to share over time. Now we are one, and can see through our clothes. Comic book ads for X-ray glasses have nothing on us, as solid in our solitude as sated panthers. One river. One river's a fjord. One river's an estuary. Both swell with the ocean and flow upstream. The sea reaches to embrace an island within them. Waters caress. Waters return and pass by. Sway, stay, sway, stay. I'll conclude with a recent poem, Sun Ra and the Creators. Sun Ra being, as many know, a jazz artist, quite prominent really from the 60s through the 90s. Sun Ra and the Creators. All day I listened to Sun Ra on the radio. He discusses how jazz art is a form revealed to him by superior beings who don't care about any future for humans, but want him to play and record his music as they teach him, so all can hear it now. Sun Ra's message is, Sun Ra's music is a message of faith from all those gifted by the creators with music eternally by rehearsing 6 hours a day. This is the purest ontology of Hegel, who proved that God exists because the nature of God is the idea of God, which exists. Perfectly conceived, it soars resoundingly through music. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Bill Considine. A Hegelian dialogue there. Appreciate that. You're listening to a reading of works from Great Weather for Media's latest anthology. It's called A Shape Produced by a Curve. We have a guest with us today. You're watching live on Zoom. Thank you for joining us. If you're watching live streaming, I know Thomas Fuculero, I believe, is watching on Facebook, and thank you all for joining us on Facebook. This will also be on YouTube in the future. Our next reader, I believe a native of Portland, Oregon, where, like many people, were poets in Portland. Also says that she's a dog walker and an activist, has several chapbooks to her name. Her name is Julia Gaskill. Very fine poet and a co-creator of the Bigfoot Regional Poetry Slam Festival, and has run a monthly show at Slamlandia, which that show is still extant, I believe. So please welcome to our Zoom reading today, Julia Gaskill.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, native Portlander. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you, Great Weather for Media, for putting this on. Thank you all to the other poets, and excited to hear everyone who comes after me as well. I'm going to read a couple newer poems, and then I'll end with my poem from the anthology. I wanted to show some love to some poems that are popping up in other places this year. I'm going to have 2 poems in the Moria Literary Journal later this year, and I thought I'd read both of those. This first one is called Of Pathos and Tradescantia, excuse me. I find my plants holding tendrils up on top of the pantry, reaching their leafy limbs towards one another's growing grasp, maybe in friendship or in love, maybe in both. Do they whisper of the forests they hail from in distant dreams? Do they ramble on their aspirations of new foliage? Do they bemoan the lack of sun or my lack of an attention span? Do they have growing pains? Do they fear for the future? Do they cling to each other because they need a little help in their unveiling and know it is easier to become a stronger being with a loved one's hand to hold? Do they see themselves in me? Do they see that I am growing too? And then this next one, also going to appear in Moria, is a poem from my brother, and this poem is called Bubba. My twin brother was gifted a tortoiseshell kitten as a child for overcoming the urge to suck his thumb. He named the cat Pretty. Because she's pretty, he reasoned with our parents. To this day, I think I love him most as this 7-year-old freeze frame, a little boy clinging to his new friend, gentle as a breeze, his hands soft and not yet a man's, singing so loud to a cat of her beauty, the whole neighborhood could hear. Those are those 2 poems. And then I had a couple poems. I'm only going to read one appear in Pile Press earlier this year, which is a phenomenal publication here in Portland. I believe you can submit from anywhere. I believe they publish women and non-binary poets, so definitely check it out. They've got like a bunch of beautiful artwork in it. It's phenomenal. I wrote this poem a handful of years back. It's after a friend of mine named Jane Belinda. I was inspired by their poem, and this poem is called Deja Vu. A dog I have worked with for months attacks me when I come to his front door, digs teeth into the meat of my left arm, leaves a long scar across my chest, and when the attack is over, I am the first to say, I must have done something wrong. I came to the house too early. I didn't remind his owner. I surprised him. It's not his fault. It's not his fault. It's not his fault. And isn't this mantra all too familiar? How I excuse away the bad behavior of every man I love, every man who has claimed to love me. Aren't I always defending each angered bark, every snarl and snap? Don't I catch myself saying, there must be a reason behind his bared teeth. He must have known abuse from a previous home. Maybe tomorrow he will be good. It is my fault that he is not good. I love dogs more than anything. I love the men in my life more than anything, and yet here I am, my body covered in teeth marks. And that is that poem from Pile Press. I'm going to read a poem or two out of my own manuscript that came out last year called Weirdo, published through Game Over Books. Just literally had its 1-year anniversary 3 days ago on Wednesday. Very happy and glad that it's out in the world. Yeah, I'll do a tone shift. I love this poem. It's called Horse Girls. Praise to the horse girls who clutch their hopes and wants like reins in their pinprick fists, those who dream of nothing but open fields, cantering, a sugar cube taken from a trusted palm. Praise to those young ones who doodle stallions within the margins of their social studies homework, tape posters of Palominos and Frisians on their bedroom ceilings, devour any book with the word thoroughbred laced between the dialogue. Praise to the horse girls who long for a mare of their own, though their family resides in the city, the ones who have only ridden at their family friend's ranch, or the ones who have only ridden that one time at the coast, or even the ones who have never ridden, that will not stop their pining for the wind, whipping through their hair, braid trailing close behind. Praise to those lonesome babes whose magnolia hearts yearn for a friend who will carry them to the ends of this sullen earth. How beautiful their smiles once they discover the perfect name of their someday steed. Praise to the horse girls who, without notice, stop their doodling, take down the posters, move on, and yet there is still a wildness in them, even once they have grown. There is still a longing for that open field, that unbroken bond, that all things adventure. Praise how their hearts never forget the want of the wind. And then I'm going to read one more poem from the book, and then I'll end with my poem from the anthology. If I can find it, this poem, a lot of my the poems in this book are about my childhood and about my mother who passed when I was 13. And I wrote this poem because it's a conversation I never got to have with her. I did that a couple times where I wrote idealized conversations that I never got to experience. And so this poem is called I Come Out to My Mother at Long Last. Once I was a fawn dipped in holy water, the forest my haven, the trees my family, the flowers my communion, the creek my rosary, the leaves whispering a promise of heaven. But only if I grew to be the kind of doe the forest wanted, all speckled with beguile and tame and meek, the kind who freezes when it gets too bright, prettiest when mounted on any man's wall. But I never wanted to be a doe when I could be a marsh wren or a common shrew or a short-tailed weasel or all of the animals contained inside of my lungs. I have always been a scream, really, the kind caught behind your fangs, must be choking on the flowers again, I have always been an infatuation, the fur on my body prickling at the thought of any beautiful creature. Look at all the love I have, how I did not know for the longest time what to do with it. I have always been a constant. Yes, I think your daughter grew up to be a constant, a reliable beast, a steadfast gallop, a varmint so deliberate and self-assured she could never have known a forest, could never have set hoof in one, not in a million years, not even in a prayer. Thank you. All right, and I'm gonna end on my last poem, which is in the anthology, A Shape, produced by a Curve. Thank you so much. Again, Great Weather for Media. Thank you for putting this on and all the other readings you've done recently. Thank you to the organizers, the editors. There's, you know, I run some poetry shows here in Portland, and I know that's a lot of work, and I can only imagine putting out a annual anthology is just as much work, if not even more. So thank you for all of your work. Thank you for everybody who's attended. Super stoked to see all the other poets. This last poem is called Grown. And Monica Kendall gave me a makeover at church camp one summer in the basement bathroom, not a sleepover makeover where Stella always applied too much eyeshadow and Laura was no good at nail polish, like a proper makeover, a Princess Diaries makeover. I looked in the mirror and did not like what I saw. A 14-year-old turned adult. We made it 8 feet from the bathroom before I said, "This is not me," and went back and washed it all off. I knew I was not ready to become grown, to tempt the boys' eyes, to play mature. I wanted to stay kid, not fit for all the trauma womanhood brings, not prepared to define whose gaze it was. I wished to draw. Thank you so much.
Julia Gaskill, thank you very much. Great to hear your voice. We now return to New York City. And our next reader, by way, actually, I think originally of Richmond, Virginia, but really, in many ways, an elder statesman for poetry here in the New York area. A young elder statesman, writer and multimedia artist. Found he's billed as a modern day griot and multi-instrumentalist, and we all know that when he performs, you never can tell what kind of instrumentation he's going to bring with him. Always an amazing sight. But I like this term for him, the godfather of the spoken word. Spokesperson for the oppressed, a mentor for a whole community of artists, musicians, and fellow wordsmiths. Please welcome Ngoma Hill.
Hello, 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 everybody. Thanks to Great Weather for Media for putting me in this lovely book, A Shape, produced by a Curve. I'm really proud of the fact that I'm in there. And in fact, I'm going to do the poem that's in there first, okay? We'll start with that. It's called Same Damn Poem. I feel like I'm writing the same damn poem, like a Groundhog Day moment. You could just read my old poems, insert the change of names. All time is now. There will always be tomorrow, only the shape shifts. You're looking for a revolution, but revolution only goes in circles. So here we are again, stuck in this rut, pushing uphill stones that roll back like Sisyphus, wondering how to get off of this treadmill some call life. All time is now. History absent-minded of recent memory. How soon we forget war is profitable, not a mystery. A pestilence brought over with manifest destiny by those who thought land and people could be owned. Everything is change, so why do we deny that Mother Earth is purging? Some have prayed for change for eons, but change may not fit the combination to your bank account. And the password is elusive. Perhaps love is the winning combination, but all we see is destruction instead of the realization of evolution, and that love is the resolution of contradictions. But for now, I need to know who's listening, because I feel like I'm reading the same damn poem. Yeah. Next poem. Why I Don't Slam. Excuse me a minute. I can't come right now, Yo Ying. Okay, here we go. Sorry. Why I Don't Slam. I got real shit to say. There's no system that can judge it. It's unjudgeable. Unjudgeable may not actually be a word, but most of the judges at slams don't know shit about poetry anyway. And depending on the venue, may be drunk. A lot of what I have to say will piss you off. I like to win and I don't give a damn about the score. I don't care about your sex life nor your sexual preference. It's not my business. It's not up for discussion. I've been in this spoken word game too long to give a damn what you think. Poetry is not a popularity contest to me. My tolerance for bullshit is limited. I'm allergic to bad poetry. I'm not a therapist. If I were, I'd send a lot of poets a bill. My poetry has a real purpose. It's not a pickup line. I'm giving you my opinion, but opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one. This poem doesn't require a score. It's unscorable. That may not be a real word either, but this poem isn't competing for a prize. Yes. I'm going to do this poem, and I didn't write this poem. This is by a good friend of mine. His name is Gary Johnston, and he's in an anthology that I'm also in called At the Crossroads by the One Breath Rising Anthology of Prose and Poetry. And this poem is called The Border of the Other America. At the border of the other America, there are no coincidences for Mr. Lester Middle. He lives at 17 Apple Lane with his snowblower wife, 2.5 kids, minivan, and big screen TV. He does not think or want to think or see the need to think, but he cares about the wall they're building across the border. He hopes they build it high to keep out what he calls the others. He has forgotten the journey over that his father made without papers or a pot to piss in. He cares ever so much about quality and has voted every year for the party that will bury him. He wants to take back America, but he has no clue who took it or if it ever really existed. He says TV has never lied to him and the news is as good as gospel. He loves his mother, but hates the dark-skinned neighbor next door. He wants those who don't speak good English to go away, but he calls all his friends youths. He tells all who will listen that the founding fathers were good old boys and the big war over the colors was really about states' rights and big government. He would love to turn back the clock back, but he cannot tell time. He is Middletown America, some total of the dumbing down, a beacon to the tempest tossed, who require lessons in Western mystique like a dog chained to an empty bowl. He hungers after nothing. He does not understand. He lives a backward state of mind, moves an inch every 5 years, makes the best of his daily bread, and when he ends up is not really where he wants to be. He is a true American, Mayflower and jingoism, last refuge of a scoundrel, the eternal conflict in the American soul, raised on half-thought politics of fear. He lives a lie made truth, 200 plus years, blind faith, sins of the father he does not know or care to know or see the need to know. This ignorance he feeds like a blessing. He passes it to his children. He tells them to keep the torch burning and remember the other, always the other, the other. Last poem. Don't call me no poet. This ain't no love song. See, mama taught me that prayer changes things, so I'm praying for enough steel to keep it real. Because death is the only door out of here, but we be scared to leave our bodies. This body's been kicked around long enough. It wasn't supposed to last forever, and my soul cries out to be free. Besides, the only thing constant is change. So I'm sitting meditating on the one when a b-boy in his boombox scared my spirit guides away, and I'm lost on a rat race trying to buy shit my TV says I need to survive. And I'm searching for freedom, but I can't define it anymore. So I'm on a vision quest trying to find a way up out of this mess. I'm walking through the park, talking to the trees. They got a protest going on against giving up their lives for Cashmas. And the local snowmakers union won't cross the picket line until Santa kicks in with some kickback. So it's 75 degrees in New York in December, and it seemed like the whole damn universe is under attack by the greedy as they plunder the world, exploiting the needy. So I'm rolling 7 ounce deep in mysticism. I meditated till the lights went out, but Con Ed wasn't hearing it. Not even an ohm could cut the darkness. So I'm burning 7 candles trying to find the light of God inside, but she's busy down at the Salvation Army healing a bell ringer who was shot by a 10-year-old white kid with a tech man from Oregon. Seemed like faith was raped of her charity and everything seemed hopeless. So I'm hanging out in poetry circles trying to get the truth, but all I get is soft porn stroking my ego to erection with no satisfaction. Too many poets saying nothing well, and I'm looking for substance, something I can take home. There's not enough meat to fill a doggy bag, so I stick to vegetarianism like a religion trying to ward off starvation. I'm chanting for peace and justice, but Kevin Banks was murdered by the new weapon of choice. A killer cop's two-way radio to the head killed him dead, no backup needed, no caution heeded. And I'm praying for Buddha. He's laying face down, spread eagle on the concrete, jacked up by killer cop on 125 Street. It's interesting. Damn, I lost it. Give me a quick second. He's lying face down, spread eagle on the contract, jacked up by 5 on the corner of 112th Street. And interest on karmic debt is higher than bail. Seemed like he'll spend Cashman's in jail. The herb spot's been shut down to improve the quality of life for street corner pharmaceuticals who offer death at half the price, while the last legal drug dealers, local watering holes like the newsroom in the Bronx, offers 3-for-1 shots of rot gut watered down, except for poets like me who are banned for using the N-word because the owner is the N-word. But alcoholism kills the liver first, and it's easy to collect from the taxes of the dead, so I scream other obscenities instead, like poverty and ignorance plus imperialism equals fascism, but justice turns a deaf ear to my fears. So I'm looking for a detox for Jesus addiction. But the offering play gets in the way because organized religion is big business, but nobody tells the poor as they pay and pray for more salvation from this hell we'll be living in. So Hail Mary full of gold, the Vatican's been bought and sold. Remember, we had homes and jobs before they brought us here. My ancestors built pyramids for years before picking cotton. Maybe that's been forgotten. Now I'm quoting Haki Matabuti saying, Jesus saves, Jesus saves, Jesus saves green stamps, but green stamps are obsolete while the poor and the homeless beg for food to eat in this land of plenty where not a damn thing is free. So don't call me no poet, because I'm just a pissed off brother with a pen. Peace, y'all. Thank you.
Ngoma hell, thank you. Pissed off brother with a pen. Done. Thank you for that. Sticking in New York for a little bit more, although next reader starting to make inroads in other places around the country. So we've worked together in Kansas City. I know he's either just been to San Antonio or is just about to be in San Antonio. You know him from the Neuronautic Poetry series that he runs and the Neuronautic Institute, the writer and multimedia artist. One of the shows that you've probably seen him running is the annual showcase for New York City Voices, Night in the Naked City. He's a recipient of the 2020 New York ACO Award, which is nothing to sneeze at. That's a big award. Congratulations for that. Please welcome our friend Matthew Hupert.
Hey, everybody. Like everyone else, I want to say what an honor it is to be in these pages and to share these screens with these people. I'm just going to get right into it here, though. My first one is a political piece. It's got a epigraph from Jeff Vandermeer. Irrational precaution might not be unreasonable. It's called From Camelot to QAnon, a story of regression. First, I had a dream and a ripple of hope. Freedom, something to do for yourself. The eagle had landed. The troops came home, or so we were sold. I want to be irrationally exuberant again. It's been a half century now since the shining city on a hill, taken from Winthrop to Kennedy to Reagan. Remember when we knew it couldn't get worse than Tricky Dick? Fed on exuberance from Normandy to Camelot, true believers in an irrational dream. And that's the kicker, isn't it? We cradled the idea America like a teddy bear. We'd wield it like a fist, We drank it with our morning coffee. We wore it like our favorite jeans. We shouted it in exuberance and song, and they called us pinko woke snowflakes and love it or leave it while it withers away. Tax breaks, budget cuts, nativism, greed. There's always been a strain staining America, an unspoken F word more offensive than fuck. The harder we loved it, the more they warped it, until even to us, our love felt naive. Today, Nixon looks like a flaming liberal, and even Reagan's starting to tinge a bit red. It began in Normandy and Nagasaki, trapped in that bright moment where they learned their doom, as Delaney wrote about the thousand suns shining on that metaphorical hill, adoring their moment in that crowning mirror, fossilized fearful that you was failure. We've become our once mortal enemy, like Sun Tzu predicted, like Eisenhower warned. There's no place outside to reenact our Normandies. Only resistance and irrational exuberance will have any success in asymmetrical war. Dream, ripple, do it ourselves, pilot the eagle, take irrational precautions, but don't kill exuberance. And this next one actually also has an epigraph, and it's from our esteemed host, George Wallace, who said, "Dance like everyone is watching." And it's called Live. Live. As if your steps syncopated with a dawn thrush song, as if your hidden breakbeat rhythm was a gentle reminder, as if your skin were scaled with crystal shards from the rings of Saturn, as if everyone was a stumbling step behind their best self, as if love didn't fade and hearts didn't break, as if you know love fades and hearts break, but it isn't fatal, even if 4 a.m. whispers in despair, reverberating the bare walls, as if you rebirth 1,000 times a day every time you unfold to notice, as if you were a work of art and as if art mattered, as if you're edged not by what you've lost, but where you're headed, as if you still carried the virtues of childhood in a frayed denim pocket, together with a pebble worn smooth and a feather iridescent. And this is a new one. This is called Philaster, Keats, and the Way of Bushido. Make a cup of my skull like the Buddhists do in Lhasa. Bang my bones like a xylophone or giant taiko drum from Kyoto, hewn from a single piece of keyaki tree stained the color of bleeding. Play my poems on a standing bell or singing bowl to echo and fade in diminuendo off high sky peaks through verdant valleys. All things are writ on water. My name is writ on water. Water someday sipped from a silent pool after dripping from leaves, golden or green. I've been writing a lot of really, really short poetry lately, so I'm just gonna pile through like, I don't know, 6 or 8 quick ones here. I'm just gonna run right through them all. The first one's called Woof Woof. If we'd evolved from dogs, we'd be in squirrel-skinned pants, asses exposed, just to be friendly and say hello. A prayer. Sing your name into my mouth. Ass over tea kettle, head over heels. She steamed my ass like an envelope over a tea kettle. There were secrets she needed to know. A sigh, as soft as her inner thigh. Encaged and enraged is no way to run a country. They told me time and again that I'd grow more conservative as I grew older, but now I dream of guillotines. This bar mirror looks sad. I find myself in a slow motion explosion, and I lit the fuse. I love this last one. The dogwood blossom spirals downstream. The salmon heads up, and for a moment, wears it like a hat. Thank you. All right, I got a few more. This one is called Kolkata 1987, although I realized later that this actually happened in 1991, but I like the title 1987 better, so I'm running with it. Kolkata, 1987. Drinking chai on the banks of the Hooghly River, not even 2K from the Mother House mission, with expats and travelers and motley and sundry, with that sort of roundabout conversation found freewheeling the road, I was asked, "What's an unpopular opinion you hold?" I nodded towards the children begging the streets and said, "I'd like to punch Mother Teresa right in the gut." Apparently shocking, so close to her sanctum, where she may well have been, right at that time. If any place ever needed birth control sanctioned and condoms distributed at every church door and abortion vouchers for any who needed, it was right here in the heart of Bengal, where Mother Teresa glorified suffering and chained children to beds to bring them closer to God, ill-fed and ailing, while she cashed the checks of despots and dictators and ate off their gold plates, quite humbly, I'm sure, all the while smiling as another 100 children born blessed to suffer in the name of her Savior because condoms were evil and abortion a sin, but starving by 6 was the glory of God. So despite the silence from fish gaping mouths and eyebrows arched high like the Howrah Bridge, I calmly repeated what it was that I wished for, to punch Mother Teresa right in the gut. Thank you. All right, 2 more. This one is called My Mesopotamian Beard. Before the chemotherapy, you wanted that one tight curl from the underside of my Mesopotamian beard. It was a compact spiral, a helix, a ring, and I said no. And I'm not sure why I said no now. Superstitious fear of the treatment to come, pretending the loss couldn't possibly happen to me, but I said no. I had so much anger, all misplaced, about cancer and loss and fear. All anger is fear misplaced, fear about you and I, and death and depression, and it all came out sideways. And it was just one small no in a long series of no's in a life meant for yes. And it might be the no I regret the most. After the chemotherapy, after my Mesopotamian beard disappeared, it returned. And once again, there's that small spiral just under my chin. My Mesopotamian beard returned, and I can only wonder if I'd given it to you as talisman, a small, small curl in a small, small box, or a locket to hang on your swan song neck, if you'd still be here with me now, and this house would still be a home. And I'm going to close with the poem that was in the book, and I felt so honored. They put this at the end of the book as a sort of delicate punctuation to the book. And I felt so seen by that moment. And I'm so grateful for the way they saw me there, honestly. And thank you all. This has been great. I'm sure the rest will be great. I love you all. And this is Untitled Sky Haiku. Don't worry, sparrow. I don't envy your ability to fly. The sky begins at the ground. Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Matthew Hupert. You're listening to George Wallace, the host for today's Great Weather for Media event. And you've heard so far from Billy Cancel, Bill Considine, Julia Gaskill, and Ngoma, and just now from Matthew Hupert. We have 3 more readers, and we're going to go further afield from New York for the remaining 3 readers. But I want to thank you all for joining us and sticking with us for this show today. About a half an hour left in the show. Next guest I'd like to welcome, like Bill Considine, is a brevitas poet. And I know we have a lot of brevitas people in the audience, the Zoom audience today, possibly elsewhere. Her name's Kid Kennedy. She's a poet and a blogger living in Walnut Creek, California, which is on the outskirts of the San Francisco Bay Area, just a mountain away from Oakland, and I think at the foot of Mount Diablo. Kit Kennedy is no stranger to Great Weather for Media. Most recently, just 2, 3 months ago, I think in July. She has our 10-minute feature on our Wednesday night series. She serves as, among other activities, poet in residence at the Ebenezer Lutheran Her Church, which next week will hold their annual 3-day conference on faith and feminism, with a focus on reviving traditions of honoring the sacred feminine. A very fine poet, which we're delighted to have with us here with Great Weather for Media. Please welcome Kit Kennedy.
Thank you very much. It's like everyone said, it's just an honor to have, just to even have your work read by Great Weather Media. But if it gets accepted, oh boy, howdy, is that a happy time. So I'm going to begin and end with poems that have appeared in Great Weather. The first one is from 2016. It's The Careless Embrace of the Bone Shaker, and which I think is a poem in itself, just the title. But here we go. It's a very short poem. I.E. Night is a placeholder for the unsettled. You, an elegant verb in another's mouth. And I'm going to read new poems, which is really kind of a treacherous thing to do, but I do it all the time. So I'm going to read new poems. This is a Haibun. So, Journey Through an Imaginary Landscape, number 1. Fall, perfect season for a journey, a leaving, a walk into color. Leaves fall, footsteps rise along the path. Your provisions minimal. Take along a small notebook, 3 colored pencils, the outline of your lover's hand, a handkerchief scented with home. Is it the smell of rosemary, cut grass, sea salt, baking bread? Grasp that walking stick in the shape of a feather. The mountain awaits, bathes in light the memory of everyone you've loved. That swatch of purple, the shade of crow wings in early evening, will be your guide. If you happen upon an older woman with a wisdom smile handing out persimmons, be sure to take one. Falling leaves, lover's breath, the mountain adjusts. And this is a really new poem, like very new. Anyway, from the series Eavesdropping at Lunch, number 7. And the reason I'm reading number 7 is because the others aren't written yet. So that's why I'm reading. To say once again that poetry is really a practical activity. So from this series, Eavesdropping at Lunch, number 7, quote, I say, don't you just love a window seat, especially if red geraniums grace the windowsill, unquote. Furthermore, I say, let the cowboy to my left with thin rope-like arms wear his black hat at the table in the smart Italian restaurant. Let the said tattooed cowboy pray over his food. Blessings do no harm. Let his wife, who he held the chair for, wear a rhinestone cross. Large, very. Let his blessing wash over the queer elder at the next table. Meanwhile, I digress. For the purpose of this luncheon, let's get down to the culinary nuts and bolts. Butternut ravioli with burnt butter, sage, walnuts. Exquisite, plump, petite pillows topped with thin slices roasted butternut, fresh sage. Shaved Parmesan, a given. Second glass Chardonnay, the dessert. Postscript. I have never again seen that cowboy with clear eyes the color of Mary's blue robe, nor anyone, wife or not, wearing a rhinestone cross. For the record, I've always had a soft spot for geraniums. An eagle contemplates an ice floe. a shrinking triptych. 1. Meanwhile, after debarking, she takes in the minimal: black, gray, white, frozen. Empty nest, empty heart, one less pair boots at door. She contemplates her ink-smudged fingers, wonders what goes unsaid, ponders what to do with all those half-filled journals, and why she always gravitates to that old red sweater. Meanwhile, precisely where does the unsaid travel? Nothing stays put permanently. Do not fret impermanence. The eagle has moved on too. Number 2. After debarking, she takes in the minimal: black, white, frozen. Nothing stays put permanently, even the unsaid. Do not fret impermanence. The eagle has moved on too. 3. An eagle contemplates an ice floe, moves on, leaving impermanence behind. And I'll end with great gratitude for Great Weather for Media from the one that is in the current anthology. A dead woman buys me 2 pairs of dress pants, both deep, dark gray. Because I am of earth, small stone, toast with jam, no butter, I wear only 1 pair of slacks at a time. Because somewhere it is winter solstice. Lights dim, I pull out all the candles. Imagine you effortlessly gliding through motes and galaxies. Tell me, where shall we rendezvous? I'll be the one in gray. Thank you.
Wow, thank you very much. Glad to see you with us again today. Kit Kennedy, thank you for joining us. Our penultimate reader for today's Zoom session, Leslie Prosterman. I am intrigued to say, aside from being an author of a book of poetry, Snapshots and Dances, is a folklorist, really a prominent museum consultant, former professor, and get this, a poet dancer in vaudeville venues, and former student of trapeze, which I don't know if we'll hear about today, but that jumps right out at me. She oscillates between New York City and DC, Washington, DC, and I believe also has set down roots at some point in time in Martha's Vineyard. After 20 years in the academy, she returned to the public sector as a poet and a cultural activist, and her experience include writing cultural policy for UNESCO and consulting with the Smithsonian Institution. So we're very pleased at Great Weather for Media to have with us today Leslie Prosterman.
Thank you. Thank you, George. And thank you to all of Great Weather for Media people for publishing and gathering us today. I am absolutely proud to be in this stellar group of a shape produced by a curve. Before I read my poems, I'm going to read something that's very new. I want to talk about writer Viet Thanh Nguyyen's talk about his memoir, The 92nd Street Y, last Friday. I am speaking as a writer and a person who is profoundly Jewish and deeply concerned for the fate of Israel and Palestine, and indeed for everyone in these times of fear and sorrow. I'm also deeply concerned that writers not be silenced. Mr. Nguyyen's talk at the 92nd Street Y was canceled at 6 hours notice last Friday by executive management because he, with 750 other writers, had signed a group statement concerning events in the Middle East, a statement in part, though not all, critical of Israel's actions in Gaza. The letter was published on October 18th in the London Review of Books. It is a sober and well-considered anguish statement. It's signed by writers of many backgrounds, including those who identify as Jewish. Immediately after news of the cancellation, the 92nd Street Wise director of the Unterberg Poetry Center, Bernard Schwartz, out of, quote, principled refusal to agree to postponing, relocated the talk to McNally Jackson, downtown New York, downtown Manhattan. Mr. Schwartz called the 92nd Street Wise decision unacceptable. Afterwards, Mr. Nguyen wrote on Facebook, "Sometimes art is silenced in times of war and division because some people only want to see the world as us versus them. But art," he continued, "is one of the things that can keep our minds and hearts open, that can help us see beyond the hatred of war, that can make us understand that we cannot be divided into the human versus the inhuman, because we are, all of us, human and inhuman at the same time." In 2019, I, with a group from my synagogue, met with, among other people, Daoud Nasser in Palestine and West Bank. And one of the things that he taught us was the phrase, "I refuse to be your enemy." I am grateful to both Mr. Nguyen and to Mr. Nasser. I wrote this a couple of weeks ago, this poem. It's called Habitat Loss. A grazing of turkeys, the mother shepherding her poults, high-pitched and coos, into no cover, only moss, inedible but wiry. On the arms of the cedar, plastic slider bags snap in the branches, odd socks on the sands. The quail come back bobbing over cardboard containers of old salad. No plums, but a linen shroud. Quail, the long distance migrant on the Judean plains, on the Gaza shores. A floppy kite caught in the moon, reconfigured. Bob-white baby now adopted by a turkey mother. There was no cover, only cushions bursting under a dictionary, wailing the side strings of a ruptured balloon trailing pleated fluorescent green at one now time, wrapped around a beak or face, a blasted house, an uprooted life. Take us away again, and I will try to be ready. This is not just a local problem. All right, this poem is called Memory. I wrote it many years after the event. The longest, the most cerulean September week, equaled only by the sky, the April my brother died. The same hard spines of the rock ridge edging up against the dirt, encircling the butterfly bush. I found a soft brown velvet bag, the word tefillin embroidered in old red and gold on the cover. It has almost no associations for me, only that it is so clearly homemade raises my tenderness. It was obviously fall. Hard yellow and black marked wings flying into the sweet cones of the Buddleia. Cellars 70 feet deep, filled with toxic ash and bodies. Remember? Neither of my Jewish grandfathers was religious in just that way, especially not my father's father. Perhaps it belonged to my great-grandfather, my grandfather's father, after all. My mother and I sat in perfect amity for hours, perfectly silent, watching the heady fragrance clusters that attracted more and more butterflies, falling wings beating, sounds of longing for before, when all seemed whole. A scrap of hard blue and gold upholstery fringe borders the bottom of the bag, spiraled against a moment, an hour of tranquil silence on that unyielding plastic chair on the stoop, holding the cold receiver from the handset. Just the two of us silent, quiet for once, together alone from the broken heart of September, canceling the flight that week, that month, year, but still quiet on my front walk in the long afternoon of chrysanthemums, of butterfly bush, spiky, serene, listening to the bees collecting nectar for the winter hive. I'm reading the next poem in memoriam for Louise Gluck, who died recently. It happens also to be the first poem I ever had accepted into an anthology about 16 years ago, a few years after I began writing poetry. Painting Louise Gluck. 5 aspiring poets slid surreptitiously on their bellies to the podium. They whipped out 5 little bright bottles, dipped their tiny brushes in the shiny pots, and smeared her toenails with jade and turquoise shellac. As she read Prism to the assembled crowd, we accidentally embalmed her entire foot in a formaldehyde-based glaze. We realized we had slightly misunderstood the formula, and backing each other up, prayed and labored apologetically to release her from that subsequent layer of unnecessary varnish. My intimacies have always been forged with people who were capable of seeing the dark side of things. With these words, she cracked the second lacquered coat of precious gems and finally released herself. And finally, the poem that got me here, called Floating World. It is on page 41 of your texts. It might be easier if you're looking at it when I read it. Floating World is from ukiyo-e in Japan, which means basically a world that is betwixt and between, liminal, not belonging to the established order. Floating World. A, I think I will never die. B, what, am I a god? A, no matter where I am, it will be home. B, transitory, but present. And after. A, home was never so chilly, so grand, so calm, so grand. B, home felt like brown pansies, Wagnerian opera in enraged whispers, leaves on a shade, like shelter. A, home will be, was, the eye of the storm. B, formerly green will be brown, crusted with a salt rime broadcast by the wind. A, later the carpenter's hammer will be the clave, the melody line. B, that carries us from that world to this. A, whatever this is. B, A, but I can't sing. be. That's how I know I will be dead, tuneful and festive.
And that, friends, was Leslie Prosterman. Put your hands together for Leslie and her performance. Thank you for that. We're gonna conclude our presentation of 8 poets from our most recent Grey Weather for Media anthology by hearing from Shein. Shein is the inaugural poet laureate of I think El Cerrito, California, part of the Bay Area, but due north of Oakland. But is a person born in Massachusetts, lived variously, including Los Angeles and New York, Allentown, Pennsylvania, Grand Junction, Colorado, and even Sparks, Nevada. A Burmese American poet, her most recent book has channeled spirits holding power over particular localities. It is called Storage Unit for the Spirit House, Omnidon, and has received numerous accolades. It was long-listed for the Penn American Open Book Award, nominated for a Northern California Book Award for poetry, and shortlisted for the California Independent Booksellers Alliance Golden Poppy Award for poetry in 2021. Please welcome now Shein.
Thank you, George. Thanks so much to everyone at Great Weather for Media on their latest collection. It's beautiful, and to all the poets who read today. I'm going to begin with the poem that's included in A Shape Produced by a Curve. In the thinking jar, an antelope asleep in the wood shop. I shop for peanut brittle online. Violet strings, a muscle prediction, an airport therapy session, a clue to find tadpoles in the bow blue ether. I draw with blood these days, a pile of shells, charm pink. I am a dram of neurotic fixes, a hatchling in the parlor, a fingerling in the hot oil, firebrick eyes. I drop a shock of wicked white hair to the floor. A blackbird on the thinking jar. Think I can swim from the Isle of Elderberry. And I'd like to read a short poem by Naomi Shihab Nye. Empty. I don't want to see what's spilled out. Blue clay jug of dreams, toppled at the head of his pallet, found at dawn, every drop of future gone. And I'd like to read some poems from my new collection, Percussing the Thinking Jar, which is coming out next year on Omnidon. Gazelle sleeps near a tumbleweed, veins thumping soft. Witness the neighbors in search of water, the cabin dwellers in fear of fire. What makes sounds at night? Nwack, nwack. Ringed horns, gaunt flanks. Who takes a chariot to market? Sunday or evening, morning or March? Young gazelle with bruised sides, licking water drops from a desert fountain. Dear H, I'm hanging out in the waiting room. I am blinking into another eye, gold shades, sirens again. Seeing the city through the window of another window, I live in a 2-second time lapse. Dear H, I stitched a quilt for you, slivers of green lint throughout. Warmth in the waiting room now. My limbs are soft with pain. Slept last night with ears open. Noted the following: pollen drift, vessel crack, pillar bark. Dear H, missing your crackling eyes, generous fountains. And this, you were standing on a dock and next to you, a steamer trunk made of bone. Strangers began to gather. You sunk your hand and lifted a spinning plate from the trunk. Applause and more applause. Dear H, my cat visited me from the other world. She witnessed bliss bursting from the pockets of houses open once again. Bright light from the storehouse, tinny bell tones. She could smell the dirt from behind the shed. And this poem is entitled Finches. In the dream, the body runs from fire, throws on a cape, dashes through the door. The body heads for the hills. Overheard at a party, head for the hills. An ambulance speeds by, blur of rust. Body informs mind, emergency. Body tries to soothe mind, breathe. Body sees a mother in a glass tank. Water on the floor and feet cold. Sometimes I forget I have a body. A therapist once said that I did not have holes in my energy field. My ex, however, had many. In the dream, I have powerful legs. My eyes are alert. I fly over burning hills and flash floods, leap over hospitals and shuttered stores. My body delivers a message. Drink 3 bottles of ginger water. My mother's body needs a walker, a hospital bed. She reads in her dreams. In the body of the dream, I am swimming. A deep lake surrounded by firs and ferns. Water soothes the mind, her body on a blanket of warm grass. Books turn pages on their own. Finches sleep in fiddleheads. Thank you. And this poem is from Storage Unit for the Spirit House. Sky space. Found round stone in gutter. Felt lighter. School bus arrived. Stone remained in center of palm. Pink sky through window. Oval cloud. Felt stone in palm and recalled a father who held a mug made of gold. Wallpaper in dining room, a forest to wonder. Counted people on sidewalk. Girl pulling wagon under freeway overpass. Stone cold in hand. Girl cold in air. Gold forest. And I would like to end with a poem by my friend, Natalie Kankan, who is a Palestinian poet. And this is from her collection, Quiet Orient Riot. A body is a quiet choice. To say that is kinship. We walk to the top. My girl in my hand will grow tired of holding the basket of blossoms. And she says something about dinner and dying, and we feel different in our throats. The school children below, with their own mothers and stepmothers, sail toward us. This heart is shape-shifting. Thank you for listening.
More shine, win, everybody. You've been listening to a Zoom gathering for A Shape Produced by a Curve, the 2023 anthology of Great Weather for Media. And we've had 8 people with us today featured: Billy Cancel, Bill Considine, Julia Gaskill, Ngoma, Matthew Hupert, Kit Kennedy, Leslie Prosterman, and more shine, win. Put your hands together for all of our readers today. Thank you for your beautiful rendering of your poems and your willingness to share them with our audience today.